Welcome back to the Forensics Detailing channel. Today we're talking about the Pro Detailers Magazine Mega Leather Test. Welcome back to the Forensics Detailing channel. So the Pro Detailers Magazine are wading in again where others fear to tread. They're always fun doing these. They're always a little bit controversial. So we're doing a mega leather test in this particular video. I'm just sort of filming a highlights reel of what we did, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the results, but all of the test results and proper formal recommendations based on all this testing are going to appear in the latest issue of Pro Detailers, which I'm going to time the video so it comes out when that issue is available. I'll put a link in the description where you can get it, or you can just Google Pro Detailers Magazine. You'll find it from that. It's also available in the US through Autality or autoautality.com. So I'll link it all up so you can find it in there. What did we do on the day? So start off with the cleaner products. First simple test we did is we got some automotive spec leather. So this is real genuine leather. We need to talk about that a little bit later on as well because that's relevant. But this is real leather that has a paint system on it. And the paint system for leather, although it's similar to cars in the sense that you put a paint system down, you might even have a primer, paint system and a top coat, which is like a clear coat. It's all flexible. Here's a piece of it here that Ian gave to me. It's all stretchy. It needs to obviously move around. Clear coat on cars is more kind of brittle and eggshell like. So different, but kind of same in principle. So the actual surface of your car's leather, if you have the real leather in there, is actually paint and clear coat essentially. And that's what you're trying to maintain. And that's for kind of pigmented aniline leather, which is rare. You know, I don't want to go into the different formats of leather right now. I will do later on. So test number one, we took these cleaner products and we got our piece of leather, and on one half of the leather we put all of the protector products that are, they make various different claims, and we have to be careful about that because some of them are kind of like protectors and conditioners in one that are kind of contain oils and stuff to soften the leather, which is another can of worms that we're going to delve into. Got too many things that we're going to delve into in a minute. Some of them are specifically kind of protective coatings that are designed to stay on the surface and provide, slip characteristics, which will help with stain resistance, if you like, help with repelling water and greases and oils and stuff like that. So the chemistry is different in some of these. A lot of information to get through. So anyway, we had half of the leather protected with these various products, half of the leather naked, if you like, with just the paint system on it. We put 5 sets of substances on there. Tomato ketchup, which is obviously a food substance that's got a lot of oil and sort of stuff like that in there. Coffee, which is with water in there as well. So the actual coffee kind of bean that's ground up is carried in water. A curry powder sort of paste that had a little bit of water in it as well, so very, very high staining kind of substance that is. Grease, and we use copper grease because of our ability to see the kind of copper within the grease chemical as well, so that would test our ability to be able to clean, grease-based stains. And ink from a biro pen, which is another common one. So they're all slightly different. What's ink carried in? Is ink carried in water, or is it carried in a solvent system? I'm not an ink expert, but ink is obviously a pigmented kind of, dye that's carried in something which vaporizes away, a bit like a lot of the chemistry in car detailing products. So, and it's a common stain. So regardless of the science of all of these different types of substances that you can put on there, it covers a broad spectrum of stuff that you're going to get on your car. We wanted to know the ability for the cleaners to clean it on unprotected leather and then on protected leather. And following in from that first point, 2 related tests, looking at the protector's ability to help reduce staining from these 5 particular kind of contaminants, if you like, or substances, let's say. And as well as the ability for those things to stain, we wanted to look at how easy the protectors made it to remove. So if we're cleaning the whole surface and we got one protected side and one unprotected side, and we can see like a coffee, you know, the water-based coffee coming off the protected side really well, but the grease not, and a variation across all of our different products, we can form an opinion on how these protectors work against different types of kind of substances, you know, water-based, oil-based, and all that sort of stuff. As well as all that cleaning stuff, we thought we'd take a look at the pH level of all these products to see if there were any really high acid values and high alkaline values. Not the end of the world, you know, just because it is high alkaline doesn't mean it's going to melt your leather or anything like that. We were more just interested to see what the range was, and there was a range. Some of them veered towards being acidic, you know, lower than pH 7. Leather has a pH of 5 as well, so it's not that much of a problem if the pH is low. Even if it was lower than 5, might not potentially be a problem. You can't really gauge how dangerous something is just purely on its kind of pH level. And on the flip side, just because something's high alkaline doesn't mean it's going to be particularly destructive. But we wanted to record the pHs just to have a look, just being a bit nosy there. And then finally, or the last 2 tests, we used the Martindale test machine, which I've been mentioning on the channel, to formally test in a controlled kind of test set, if you like, the ability for denim leather to inflict dye transfer on unprotected leather, an unprotected leather control piece, and all of the products. So we've tested 410 meters of motion on a particular piece of leather at the furthest most traveled point of the orbit. And then I kind of tried to think, how does that correlate into shuffling your leather jeans on cars, you know? And I figured it's very hard to, you know, calculate this, because it depends how much you shuffle your bum when you get in and out of the car, when you're in the car. But say when you use your car, you shuffle your bum and you create a meter's worth of movement of leather over the surface, and I know pressure and all this comes into it, but it's just a finger in the wind. So when you use your car, you do a meter's worth of rubbing. Figured 409 days worth of rubbing. So let's say between 6 months and a year is a very rough figure of how much wear we're putting into this particular piece of leather in that 1 hour test.
It's like a cowboy twerking in a Cadillac. How about that? Because cowboys obviously wear denim and it's white leather, and Cadillacs always have white leather, and twerking involves posterior movement.
Like I say, that could be off a little bit. So it's quite an intrusive test in terms of dye transfer, and we didn't know how well the products were going to cope with it. The final test we were going to do is measure the gloss of the untreated leather surface, which is very, very low. It was about 2.5 GU, so it's not, this leather doesn't have a glossy finish, it's a matte finish, and we put the leather protectors on there, and then we'd measure the gloss afterwards, because ideally these products shouldn't alter the gloss of the leather. Some of them do though, and some of them claim to. They say they add shine, but we thought it was an interesting thing, because personally, if you've got a nice matte leather finish and you put a product on it and it makes it all glossy and shiny, some people might not like that. So we recorded all the gloss adding, and we're including that in the test results. That's pretty much it, although we just did a couple of little ad hoc tests on little tests here and there where we just got nosy on particular things. For example, some of the products in the friction wear test that didn't do particularly well and did generate a lot of dye transfer, the protectors, we wanted to see if it was actually easier to get that dye transfer off. So we did some little informal things like that to just observe some certain things. That pretty much is the test criteria. Right, the next thing I need to delve into is really, really important. It's where all the can of worms lie, which is, you know, the healthy area to delve into for any channel. And this is about the different types of leather that get used in cars and how you should benefit and treat those leathers. Let's just talk about leathers. Now, in the video I did where Ram came over and explained all this and looked at the big chunk of skin as it's taken off of the cow and what that consists of and how it's processed and tanned, and then what they do to it, the splitting of it, the cutting of it into layers is the really important thing. And the top layer is the sort of creme de la creme, the expensive stuff, the aniline kind of leather surface. Even that is kind of processed, because a natural leather, when you sand out all the kind of rough hairs and stuff, you'll see all these big pores of where, you know, in the skin. So typically you won't see that on even pigmented aniline leather. So it's quite heavily processed and sanded and then, you know, painted and embossed and, you know, top coated and all that to give you a finish which is very consistent and very nice. And the paint system on it is non-porous on application. So that's your pigmented aniline leather, if you like. And that, Ian was telling me, is very rare to find that in cars nowadays. It's quite, you know, it's not that as robust as the next thing we're going to talk about. And it's really this stuff that you can argue can benefit from conditioning as that painted system of, you know, paint and top coat. As that wears and it becomes porous, you could argue that if the leather dries out, it can benefit from conditioning to soften it, to make it supple, make it look nicer. And that gets debated. But let's move on to the next format of leather, which is most commonly used, and that's PU leather or bonded leather, and we'll talk about vinyl after that. So PU or bonded leather is where they take not the top surface, not the creme de la creme good stuff, but they take a sort of like a cut or a slice of the leather that's somewhere further down into the skin, and there's multiple layers of this. And then what they do is coat that particular surface in plastic or polyurethane, and then, you know, they will emboss it and paint it and put a top coat on it, pretty much like the aniline leather. So it probably feels slightly different, maybe a little bit stiffer than the aniline, but very different, very difficult to tell, you know, from looking at it and even from sort of poking when it's on the car. Be very difficult to tell what's PU leather and what is real pigmented aniline leather from looking at the surface. There is a slight difference in feel, I think, but, you know, it's very hard to tell. The debate could be, what is the benefit of using conditioner products which are designed to penetrate when you have a solid layer of plastic sitting over a sort of coat of a underlayer of leather underneath? And what is the reason for having that leather underneath there? You know, some people argue that it's just literally so the manufacturers can say, yeah, we use a particular, you know, and there'd be like a trademark name, Allure leather in our cars, and it's 95% real leather. And really it's just the kind of middle layer that's there to form the backing and form the substance. You couldn't just have a little sheet of plastic on its own. Although you could with the vinyl. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. So really PU leather, all the surface and all the finish you're getting, it's all kind of manufactured, that finish, and the leather underneath is just really providing the backing. That particular type of leather, what is the benefit to conditioning it? Will the conditioner ever get through the plastic coat? Because even if the paint system on top of it fails, is the little strip of polyurethane going to allow conditioner through it? Even if it does, is there any real benefit to conditioning that kind of layer of leather underneath, which is really only there to provide substance, you know, and also it's the handy benefit of being able to say it's 95% real leather or whatever. So that is an area of contention, rightly or wrongly so. It's an area against why perhaps a lot of conditioners aren't suitable to actually make any benefit on leather. And it's an area I'm not too sure about, and I'll give you my final thoughts on it in a second. I just want to move on to the next format of leather, which is vinyl leather. So vinyl leather again uses a synthetic kind of plasticky, I think it might be polyurethane as well, surface which is embossed, painted and clear coated, just like our PU leather, but it doesn't have that strip of real genuine leather underneath it. Typically if you see a bit of vinyl and you look underneath, it's foam and fabric. It has like a layer of fabric and then like a foam meshing over the top of it. So it's completely man-made, completely synthetic, but still looks the same almost as you know, the PU leather. They can still give it the same look and feel. So with vinyl there is virtually no argument to say that it will benefit from conditioning, because there is nothing in there other than the fabric underneath the plastic, you know, and the conditioner might not even get down to that, or probably won't because of the plastic layer. So vinyl probably doesn't benefit from conditioning itself. So as well as all that dye transfer stuff, guys, there was all the results from the cleaners, and there was a variance in results there, and there was a variance in results of the protector's ability to actually, you know, help stopping these substances stain and aid with removal of them. So there's all sorts of interesting stuff there. We've tried to run this fairly. We've tried to run it reasonably controlled, you know, and neutrally as well, which is important. And the motivations are to give some good consumer information out against products. And it's really good that, you know, we've got these guys that are willing to bring the products in and have them tested this way, which is important as well. And we're not looking to really tear any of them a new orifice. You know, we're just interested ourselves, and we want to kind of run this with good intent and provide some solid recommendations. So if you're interested in maintaining leather and following up on some of these recommendations, go and buy the latest issue of Pro Detailers magazine and let me know in the comments your thoughts on all this leather test and stuff. It's definitely been a big eye-opener for me. Although, you know, some things went as expected, some things were better than expected, some things didn't perform as expected, so it's all that can of worms. But as always, very interesting stuff, guys. So that is the PVD Mega Leather Test. Go check it out, and I'll see you soon on the Forensics Detailing channel. Bye for now. Jesus.
Holding on to what I knew, but the moment's gone. Where was I?